Welcome to the Travel Guide of Lisbon. Lisbon is arguably Western Europe's most underrated capital city. It's also one of the continent's oldest. First founded as a trading port city in 1200 BC, Lisbon predates Rome. Most of the old city was destroyed in an earthquake in 1755. But today, the City of Light is thriving. In the last 50 years, its population and annual visitors have more than doubled as the rest of the world discovers what this second city on 7 hills has to offer. Indeed, Lisbon checks all the boxes. It's home to colonial architecture, destination museums, and even its own genre of music. Hop on an iconic yellow tram and explore a fortified castle, a bustling waterfront, or a colorful maze of cobblestone streets. There's fun food, think theme trucks, and even cereal bars. And fine food, 5 Michelin-star restaurants. At night, retire to a funky hostel, beautiful boutique property, or a 16th century 5-star hotel. The Lisbon Oceanarium is the largest aquarium in Europe, with millions of gallons of salt water, and features 1 permanent and 1 temporary exhibit. There are tropical, temperate, and cold water ecosystems to represent each of Earth's oceans. The aquarium opened as part of Expo 98 to demonstrate the bond between the city of Lisbon and the ocean. It marked the link between the past and the future and the importance of ocean conservation. Lisbon's Oceanarium consists of 2 connected buildings, the older Ocean Building and the newer Sea Building. You will find the permanent exhibit with the main tank in the Ocean Building and the temporary exhibit along with the entrance at the Sea Building. So just how big is the Lisbon Aquarium? The main tank contains 5 million liters of salt water. Created by 4 marine habitats to create 1 sole ocean, the permanent exhibit features 8,000 sea animals and over 100 species from 4 oceans. Since 2015, the temporary exhibit is Florestas Submersas, translating to underwater forest, and designed by Takashi Amano. The entry fee for aquarium is €25 for adults, €15 for kids, and free for children under 2 years of age. It is open from 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. or 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. Village like Alfama is one of Europe's oldest neighborhoods. It was settled as far back as the Iron Age, and later occupied by the Romans, Visigoths, and other Germanic tribes, before becoming the heart of Moorish Lisbon. With the conquest of the city by Portugal's first king in 1147, the Moors were either killed in the siege or segregated in Moraria, and Alfama became home to the upper classes. It was also the Jewish quarter until the Jews were expelled, together with all other non-Christians who didn't convert, in 1497. As Lisbon expanded, the wealthy residents moved west, leaving Alfama to the fishing community. Thanks to its dense bedrock foundations, it was practically the only neighborhood that wasn't greatly affected by the disastrous 1755 earthquake. Its maze of cobbled bicos, alleys, escadinhas, steps, and largos, small squares, is just as it was centuries ago, and it's a joy to wander around, finding unexpected river views and incredibly picturesque details. You don't really need a map, just your camera. All you need to know is that if you continue going down the hill, you'll eventually reach the waterfront in downtown, while uphill is the castle and the tram tracks. At the very top is the neighborhood of Grava. The majestic Praca do Comercio, lined with bars, restaurants, cafes, and shops, is the main square of the city and a national monument of Portugal. Nestled between the famous Rua Augusta Arch and the Port of Lisbon, the iconic riverside square is like a gateway to the city, welcoming visitors right on the waterfront. This must-see area is remarkable not only for its grandeur, but also for its historical significance. Covering 30,600 square meters, Praca do Comercio is one of the largest and most beautiful squares in Europe. It is located on the south side of the Tagus River, on the site where the old royal palace stood for over 2 centuries before it was destroyed by the Great Earthquake of 1755. Reaching majestically into the sky, the Rua Augusta Arch is one of the first highlights that will catch your eye. The triumphal arch that marks the beginning of the Rua Augusta shopping street stands as a reminder of the reconstruction of the city after the devastating series of disasters of 1755. Today, it is also a very popular photo motif. On both sides of Rua Augusta, magnificent 18th century arcades and lemon yellow facades attract attention. Some of the arcaded buildings still house government offices, but most of them have now been converted into pricey restaurants, cafes, and bars with outdoor seating. Another point of interest is the equestrian statue in the center of Praca do Comercio facing the river. The monument, sculpted by Machado de Castro, depicts King José I of Portugal, who ordered the reconstruction of the city after the earthquake and redeveloped the city. Literally upper neighborhood, Bairro Alto sits at the top of a hill and is the most recent of Lisbon's old quarters. Laid out in 1513, it was the city's first planned district. It was the neighborhood of merchants and aristocrats, but by the late 1800s, it was home to several newspaper offices. Then came the bars to serve the journalists who left work late at night, and those were followed by brothels. Soon Bairro Alto became synonymous with a bohemian lifestyle, and by the 1980s, it was where everyone went to in the late hours, creating street parties every Friday and Saturday night. Those continue to this day, although many of the night owls have moved down to the waterfront, in Cais do Sodré. It still has a variety of restaurants and bars, and although it no longer mixes different urban tribes, you still see people of all ages, straight and gay, bar hopping and drinking on the streets. Back in the 15th century, the king and his military advisors realized Lisbon's existing defensive forts at the mouth of the Tagus River didn't provide enough protection from sea-based attack. Plans were drawn up in the early 1500s to add a new fortified tower on the northern bank of the river, a little further downstream where the Tagus was narrower and easier to defend. At the southwestern edge of Lisbon's official city limits, the popular neighborhood of Belem lies about 5 miles from downtown areas like Alfama. Getting there is straightforward. Trains, buses, and trams all run along the river from Cais do Sodré and other main stations, all costing under €3 for a single ticket. Ferries also run to Belem, but only from a couple of terminals on the southern bank of the river. The tower opens to visitors from 10 a.m., closing at 5:30 p.m. from October through May, and at 6:30 p.m. the rest of the year. Oddly, last entry is at 5 p.m., regardless of the closing time. When planning your visit, note the tower is closed every Monday, as well as New Year's Day, Easter Sunday, May Day, 1st May, and Christmas Day. You can still take photos of the striking exterior when the tower isn't open, of course, but you won't be able to get inside. Head around to the right of the tower for the best photos, away from the line and busy pedestrian area. Sunset is a particularly good time for shots of the tower, framed against the river and orange sky. Lisbon's tallest hill was fortified even before the Roman occupation, and the Visigoths and the Moors all left their mark. The St. Jorge Castle you see today is the restored version of the Moorish construction, which largely collapsed in the 1755 earthquake. It was also the royal residence before the king decided to build a palace on the waterfront, which was also completely destroyed in the earthquake. Today, the castle crowns the city as the main landmark of ancient Lisbon and offers a breathtaking view from its walls and pine-shaded terraces. The castle is a pleasant walk from downtown if you follow the tram tracks up the hill past the cathedral. If you want to save your legs, take bus 737 that departs from Praia de Figueira and ends right by the gate. Trams 28 and 12 also pass nearby. Lisbon's most romantic hilltop viewpoint faces the castle, seen on the opposite hill. It's a landscaped terrace split into 2 levels, dotted with busts of historical and mythological figures, and with 2 kiosk cafes serving drinks and light meals. The upper level is paved with Portugal's traditional cobblestone designs and has a fountain at the center. A tile panel added in 1952 illustrates the monuments that can be seen from here, and there's also a monument from 1904 paying tribute to Bairro Alto's newspaper sellers. The lower level is a geometric garden and features a fountain hidden on the wall, which received the waters of a reservoir of the city's monumental aqueduct. The convent facing it, Convento de São Pedro de Alcantara, is one of Lisbon's few attractions that remain overlooked by travel guides. It's a building from 1670 that opened to the public for the first time in 2014, revealing an outstanding marble chapel and a Baroque church with a gilded altarpiece and tile panels, illustrating the life of Saint Peter of Alcantara, after whom the viewpoint was also named. Originally named after Prime Minister and dictator Salazar when it was inaugurated in 1966. This bridge changed its name after the 1974 revolution that happened on April 25th. While it may look like the Golden Gate in San Francisco, it was in fact built by an American company. It was actually inspired by the Bay Bridge in the same city. Its central span is longer than that of the Golden Gate, and it links Lisbon to the beaches of Costa da Caparica and to the south of the country. One of the 14 pillars, Pilar 7, houses an exhibition documenting the bridge's construction process, and it's possible to see the mechanisms that make a suspension bridge work. The highlight, however, is taking an elevator to a glassed observation deck at the top for a view directly above the river and over the city. For the best views of the bridge, walk down the road to Rua de Cascais, where you find an underpass to cross to the Alcantara train station. And from there, it's just a few steps to the docks of Santo Amaro. The former warehouses of the docks are right below the bridge and are now restaurants and bars. Here you can take some of the best photos of the bridge and walk along the waterfront all the way to the monuments of Belem. Inspired by the iconic statue of Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro, the Catholic Church in Portugal decided to have its own monument to Christ in Lisbon. Named Cristo Rei, Christ the King, the gigantic statue also has its arms opening to the city. The idea came soon after World War II, when Lisbon remained neutral and escaped the bombings that destroyed other European capitals. It was a way for Catholics to thank God for what they interpreted to be a blessing, and after several years of planning and construction, the monument was finally unveiled in 1959. That was 7 years before the inauguration of 25 de Abril Bridge, which can be seen right below it. Even those of other faiths, or with no religious beliefs at all, will want to visit this monument, as there's no better view of the bridge. You can almost touch it from the terrace by the pedestal, and will feel like you're flying above it from the viewing platform by the statue. To get to Cristo Rei, you have to take the commuter ferry that departs from Cais do Sodré station in central Lisbon. It crosses the river in just 8 minutes to Cascais, and that's where you may hop on bus 3001, which terminates by the entrance to the monument. The ruined Carmo Convent is one of Lisbon's most hauntingly beautiful sights. It was its greatest medieval building that stands as a reminder of the devastating earthquake of 1755 that destroyed most of the city. Its roof collapsed on the congregation as it was attending Mass on that All Saints' Day and was never rebuilt, but the Gothic arches still stand. Most of the architecture dates back to the 1300s, but Manueline, Portuguese Gothic, windows, and other details were added later, in the 16th and 18th centuries. Miraculously, much of the art in the convent survived the earthquake and was then distributed among the different churches in the city. However, many pieces of artistic and cultural interest remain and can be seen around the Gothic arches and in the sacristy, which was not damaged in the disaster. The church was the burial site of Christopher Columbus' wife, Philippa Perestrello, a native of the Portuguese island of Porto Santo, who the explorer married in Lisbon's Igreja de Santiago. Carmo Convent can be reached by the Santa Justa elevator. It's also a short walk from the Baixa Chiado metro station, exiting to the Chiado side, on the green or blue lines. Admission is €5. There's a 20% discount with the Lisbon card. The Vasco da Gama Bridge was inaugurated in 1998 as Europe's longest and remains one of the largest in the world. It's longer than Rezende Bridge, which links Denmark and Sweden. It connects Lisbon to southern Portugal and Spain, and was named after Portugal's famous explorer on the 500th anniversary of his voyage to India, which opened maritime trade between the East and the West for the first time. The bridge is 13 kilometers, 8 miles, long and seems to almost vanish into the distance. You don't need to drive over it to get a close-up view, as it's possible to walk under it, following the waterfront promenade of the Parque das Nacoes district. There's a skate park and a pump track below it, and it stands over Parque Tejo, a park where locals jog, cycle, walk their dogs, and play soccer. Very few tourists come this far, but those who do often pose for selfies on the boardwalk with the bridge as a backdrop. The closest metro station to the bridge is Movavi on the Red Line. Walk towards the river when you exit the station, and you'll see the Vasco da Gama Tower. The bridge is a short walk from there. You may also take the metro to Orient Station and walk down the waterfront promenade towards the bridge. Eastern Lisbon used to be an ugly industrial area until it was chosen as the site to host the last World Fair of the 20th century, Expo 98. Now called Parque das Nacoes, this part of the city is still often referred to as Expo by some locals. Since the fair, it has been reborn into a futuristic glass and steel district, home to some striking examples of contemporary architecture. Many are structures left behind by the event, while others are more recent constructions that kept the oceanic theme, like the Twin Towers São Gabriel and São Rafael, built between 2000 and 2004, which resemble ships and are named after two of Vasco da Gama's vessels. One of the landmarks from the World Fair is the Santiago Calatrava-designed Orient Station, while Pritzker Prize-winning architect Álvaro César Vieira is the man behind the fantastic Portugal Pavilion, known for its remarkable undulating roof. The main attraction, however, is the state-of-the-art Oceanarium, one of the world's most spectacular aquariums. The scenic 5 kilometers, 3 miles long waterfront promenade and its green spaces with exotic trees attract locals walking their dogs, jogging, or cuddling on the benches. Surprisingly, not many tourists pass by, but there are always a few posing for selfies with Europe's longest bridge as a backdrop. Take the Metro Red Line to Orient Station. Alternatively, hop on a train that departs around every half hour from Santa Apollonia Station. It's an urban or regional service with suburbs or different towns as the final destination, but that passes by Orient Station in just 8 minutes. A much slower option is taking bus 728 that goes down the waterfront, past Belem, Prava do Comercio, and Santa Apollonia Station, towards Parque das Nacoes. The 4 clean, safe, and artful lines of the Lisbon Metro connect downtown's waterfront to the northern districts and the suburbs of Amadora and Odivelas. The first lines opened in 1959 and are still expanding. They do not, however, reach the Belem district or the neighborhoods on the tallest hill around the castle, Grava, and the highest part of Alfama. Still, the metro is the most efficient way to get to many of the city's attractions and hotels between the hours of 6:30 a.m. and 1 a.m. Pena Palace is something that not even Disney could dream of. It's one of the world's most spectacular palaces and one of Europe's most eclectic constructions. Resembling a fairy tale castle, it was built in 1840 over an old monastery, which was incorporated into the new building, including a 16th century chapel with a marble and alabaster altarpiece, and a Manueline cloister with decorative tiles from 1520. Located at the top of a mountain, it's a fantasy palace mixing details inspired by the Gothic, Manueline, Moorish, and Renaissance styles, creating one of the finest examples of European Romanticism. There are watchtowers of various shapes. One of the gateways is topped by the half-man, half-fish Triton, and much of the interior, untouched since the last royals left in 1910, is decorated with Oriental porcelain and European furniture. In the kitchen are displays of large cooking utensils used to prepare the royal banquets. Often compared to Germany's Bavarian castles, Pena is as symbolic to Portugal as Neuschwanstein is to Germany. But it actually predates that Bavarian icon by 2 decades and is considered the first romantic palace in Europe. It was planned by King Ferdinand, who also ordered the planting of Pena Park below it. Admission to Pena Palace is €14 for adults and €12 and 50 cents for children between the ages of 6 and 17. It's a demanding hour-long hike from the center of town up to the gate at the top of the mountain. So unless you're fit, enjoying hiking, and have plenty of time to spare, you need to take a bus 434, which departs from outside the train station. Lisbon Central Park was named as a tribute to the English monarch Edward VII, who visited Lisbon in 1903, 5 centuries after the Anglo-Portuguese alliance. It ascends one of the city's hills and provides a wonderful view from the top. It's made up of symmetrical box hedging and a variety of plants, most of them found inside a cool and heated greenhouse from the 1930s. Which is filled with exotic species from tropical climates. This greenhouse is one of the most important green spaces in Lisbon, considered an authentic living museum, with its small lakes and waterfalls, statuary, and hundreds of species of plants. Every June, the park hosts the city's annual book fair, lasting for several days. At the top is a viewpoint with a huge 20-meter-long Portuguese flag, and a monument to 1974's April 25th Carnations Revolution, inaugurated in 1997. Admission to the greenhouse is €3.10, or free with the Lisbon card. It's also free on Sundays until 2 p.m. The park can easily be reached by metro or walking from Avenida de Liberdade. The Marquês de Pombal station of the Blue Line of the Metro is at the lower end of the park, while the Park station on the same line leads to the top of the park. You may ride the Metro, as well as the city's buses, trams, funiculars, and trains for free with the Lisbon card. Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share our videos. Your assistance will enable us to produce additional informative guides.